Hello and welcome back to another episode of the lovely Hitting the Bars. It's your host Savannah with her lovely co-host Kelty. How are you doing from Sweden?
I'm doing great. Just trying not to be uber depressed from seasonal depression. It's not even 3 p.m. and the sun is going down. So, aside from that, I'm doing good. It's very calm and peaceful here. So it's good for me. I think it's a nice balance from downtown living. How are you doing?
I've never lived nor even been to Sweden. And I feel like maybe a lot of our listeners haven't either, because I feel like it's a niche spot. What is it like? I have no idea. My family's Swedish and I have no idea.
Well, you got to come visit me. First of all, I highly recommend everyone visiting. I love it. I would describe the land, the environment, very similar to Canada. They're very geographically aligned. So, northern Sweden's very much the same temperature as northern Canada, and southern Sweden is very similar to Vancouver, Seattle weather. So the weather and even the trees look a lot like Canada. So I find that funny. When we're driving on the road, I'm like, whoa, am I in the Rocky Mountains or in the prairies? But in terms of the culture, there's so many differences, but they're also funny. There's a lot of similarities. Obviously, they speak a different language, but they're very similar to Canada and North America, whether it be, just pop culture references and whatnot. But the fashion in Sweden and just their view on the world, I guess I would affiliate it with their term legume. I pronounce that awfully with my Canadian accent, but the idea, they do a lot of things with not too much, not too little. The sweet salty, things are really good when they're sweet and salty. They kind of are that balance, not excessive of anything, but not too little of anything. So that's kind of, not that they're cheap, they're quite the opposite, but they will never have a big logo or a really flashy car. They would have a really nice cashmere sweater with no logo on it. That's very Scandinavian fashion. You see it in their, minimalist, I guess, as it's kind of branded as, but it's more of not flashy quality pieces with everything. Everything serves a purpose, whether it be their home, they want it to be just the perfect level of comfort and clean. And I guess that's how I describe the culture and just their view on fashion. And obviously they have it's actually fascinating for how small of a country it is, how big of an impact it has worldwide. That blows my mind. We obviously know, I just said it 100 times, that their home decor influence with IKEA and Scandinavian just influence. That also, there's a lot of Denmark and Norway, of course, in that as well. It's not just Sweden, but even Scandinavian clothes. And if you want a little fun twist, go look how much of pop music is actually made in Sweden. It is mind-blowing. Just this small little country has such an impact on the world. I find it fascinating.
That is very odd. I've been what do you do for fun there? When you're there?
They're very active.
Restaurants?
Very active. So they would be known for, they have great food. I do think so. And fika would be more their thing. So we're a lot more of go out for drinks and nighttime. Coffee and lunch is very on the go in North America. It's kind of get in as fast as you can, eat while you're walking. That's not as much of a thing in most of Europe, but fika would be midday, you go for a coffee and a sweet treat with a friend, kind of like a tea break. Or you would think of, but it's a whole way of to slow down, appreciate the moment. So they have, that would be a very Swedish thing, to go for a fika. Then, like I said, they're very active, very active. So everyone plays paddle, which is this kind of mixture of, it's kind of how would I describe it? Kind of squash and tennis combined, called paddle. Everyone's always skiing, out for runs. Everyone's just really active and likes to do things. So that'd be what a lot of people do for fun. Obviously there's still nightclubs and bars, so people go out there. I would just say it's just it's very Vancouver in a lot of ways, just very active. And then girls are just like us. They love shopping, going to workout classes, going out for cocktails with their friends. it's very similar, just with a different font, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My family, we're a melting pot. We don't really know where we're from, Mm-hmm. I know my mother's side's more English, because my grandpa did trace back a couple generations, but my dad really had no idea. But we had I think it was his grandfather. So my great grandfather, his name was Johan, and he was straight up like came from Sweden to America, and we knew that. So we were like, okay, we're Swedish. And then my dad did the 23andMe test. Not one lick of Swedish in him.
Really?
Is that not weird? Isn't it odd?
It is, but I've always wondered this with the 23andMe. How far back does it go? Because, like, say maybe you guys were Swedish before. Yeah, but no, I'm saying, like, how long in their ancestry? Like, does it go back 300 years? Like, we all lived, 600 years in a completely different place. So I wonder if you originally were in Sweden, but 400 years ago, your family immigrated to England and all those places. So that's why it comes up as English. Does that make sense? Like, I've always had that suspicion that, like, a lot of, I'm going to butcher history. This is not a history lesson. I'm not a history buff, but I wonder, I was like, how far back does that go? Like, if it was able to go back 300 years farther, would you have been Swedish then? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I have no idea. All I know is it doesn't make sense because it's his grandfather. So it would have been like he knows his grandfather, like he knew him. I never knew him. But like, that's where I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. Our entire family has a lake house. It's like everything's in Swedish, like in the sense of like, we're Swedish. And then my dad was like, wait, what? I think it said like he was more Italian and like would make sense because we have really dark hair. But I thought that was so fascinating because I'm like, this entire time you've been telling people you're Swedish, and I need to ask him. I don't remember what else it said. He acts as if like this is boring to me, and I'm like, Dad, whatever you are means I'm this. He's like, did you know I'm Italian, Savannah? And I'm like, so we're Italian. Like, I am your kin, sir. Yeah, right? It just cracks me up because I'm like, I'm actually interested. I've never done one of these tests. But yeah, I don't know. We joke that something happened that we're like, how did your grandfather come straight from Sweden and you don't have a lick of Swedish in you? But he looks just like, my family has very distinct features. Like we all have the same large eyes, same nose. Like it's not like, he was switched at birth. It's very obvious he was related to his mother who is, the daughter of that grandfather. So yeah, I don't know. So it was random, but I just thought it was funny, and that was my connection. I remember doing reports on Sweden, and when I was a kid, because I thought that was my heritage, and now it's a lie, and I have no idea.
Isn't that how it always is? And also, I realized I completely butchered your timeline when I was thinking that way, because that's how my family got screwed up. I was like, no, I like completely screwed up the timeline how you said it. I was like this and that, so ignore everything I said. Exactly, but it is like, that's just an example. I was like, how accurate is it? And like, how long do you have to be somewhere in Sweden? Do you have to be there for 100 years, 50 years before it would show up on there? Like even like, so I wonder if like, that's why I was like, I don't get these things, because I'm like, you could have been there in the last 300 years. You could have actually been there 500 years ago. Like, what actually constitutes as you were in Sweden or Ireland or wherever it was you were from? You know what I mean? I just, something seems fishy about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I hope these listeners are picking up on how obnoxious my neighbor is. He has these like those low riding cars where they have like a huge muffler, and I don't even know if you can hear it.
I can't.
But I see my mic picking it up, and it is so obnoxious. He comes in and he has 12 cats, and these 12 cats crowd around his car, and he has it like the muffle and everything's like rum, 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 for like 20 minutes straight. And I'm like, my office faces it, and I'm so tempted to go over and just be like, turn off your car. Just turn it off. Like, please, I'm filming. Or like, I just don't want to hear the engine for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just saw it picked up. So I'm shocked you didn't hear it in my headphones because it was so loud. It's like, I don't know who he's trying to make, a scene for. Nobody's around. It's a quiet neighborhood, but
he's having a party with his cats.
Well, his cats also like poop in our yard, and I'm like, how would you feel if my dog pooped in your yard and I didn't clean it up?
Right? There's got to be an unwritten rule of like over 4 cats, you're a red flag. There's just like unwritten rule about that.
Well, I understand there's a lot of strays here, so I appreciate like that there's more stray dogs than humans on the island. So
crazy.
Like I do appreciate that he's taking them in. I'm assuming they're strays that he took in. Maybe he just I have no idea, actually. I don't know this man. But It is just funny because like we have to park our car inside our garage because the cats will sleep on it and scratch it, and like just the weirdest things. I've never had a neighbor have so many animals. He has cockatoos and peacocks in his backyard, so you hear those things constantly. He's got like vicious dogs there that whenever I walk Bentley, it's a party in my neighbor's house in a bad way. And I'm sure they're lovely. I wave, but I'm just like, boy, this is what living in a neighborhood is like sometimes.
You live no, you don't live in a neighborhood. You live next to a zoo. That is the difference.
That's literally, yeah. Everyone's like, we have some friends that are neighbors, and they're like, like that one place that has all the dogs that constantly bark and they sound like they're going to eat each other's heads. I'm like, oh yeah, that's my neighbor. They're like, or the peacocks. Peacocks are actually quite loud. And there's a lot of stray peacocks here as well. So I don't know. They must just either be animal lovers or collect animals in a wrong way. So I have no idea.
I hope lovers, please do, because you never know.
I hope lovers too.
It's one of those, they're either the best people or just like have a unfortunate hoarding problem. It's one of the two. And you're like, oh God, I hope you're just lovers and these animals will have good lives.
I completely agree. I mean, it looks like the cats like them when they come home. So it's just like they just aren't indoor cats. So then they claim our house as their own. And I think to be fair, it was like the previous owner was never here, so maybe the cats got comfortable where they don't come back as much anymore. They used to sleep everywhere, like on our front door, like all these things. And we were like, whatever, I don't care. I like cats, but I think it was like when Bentley goes outside and the minute he steps outside he eats cat poop is when I was like, I'm a little over this. I'm a little over my house being a litter box now, like my garden.
Yep. That's where the lines cross. Pretty simple line in the sand. Once
just litter box
fecal matters involved. One simple thing. Honestly, it should be the bare minimum. So that's why I'm like, it's not leaning towards animal lover at that point.
No, definitely not. Well, I look at the time. It's been 12 minutes. I feel like, should we get into our actual topic of the...
We should. Nothing says health and wellness like feral cats. So let's just jump right into the quick pivot of today's episode. Yeah, you know what? We're slowly easing into it. Sometimes you just need to remember fitness isn't that serious.
No.
But the serious part about fitness, I guess actually that was a lame transition. I'm not going to go that way. But today's episode, we're talking the 5 foundations to include in your health and fitness routine. And what we mean about that, at first I was like, just little habits. But these are a bit bigger. I would say like they're foundational pieces. They're like the foundation to your house, and then you'll build the bricks on top of it. But they're simple little, like they're maybe 1/20th of your foundation. Easy things you can implement this year that will have an insane turnaround. And I just think there are a few overlooked things, some lame, some maybe a bit not as lame. Just to add in that I think if you get all of these by the end of the year, and they're just little things to start adding in, I think you can completely change your life upside down in terms of like health and wellness. Wouldn't you agree?
I definitely agree with that. I feel like sometimes people only view the flashy things when it comes to their fitness routine,
Yes.
like the workouts they're doing or how consistent they're going, which is great. Of course, we need these things, but there's also like mini little habits that you need that will make a difference to keep you consistent, or that will actually impact you that you don't even realize until you start applying them and you're like, oh wait, that worked for me. Because anyone can be consistent. You can train consistently, but if you don't switch it up, or if you don't, really pay attention to the habits within those workouts, that's where like you may not see change. So I think it's important.
Very. And I feel the fitness industry, it's an unfortunate thing. So this is why we kind of have to bring it back in when I think we're all in our that girl era of January, try to be the best version of ourselves kind of vibe. But I think the fitness industry is really bad at constantly trying to sell the new it thing, whether it be this weightlifting move and you do 100 lunges to the right with a band around your ankle and then eat this weird herb from the middle of nowhere, and like everyone thinks like that's the solution that's going to be like 360, but all those crazy things maybe progress your life like 0.001% better, versus these things are simple, not that flashy, but they can improve your life 1 5, 10% better. So that's why it's like, let's go back to the basics, the foundation that you actually need to focus on versus that weird supplement you saw online that you're convinced will change your life. And like, these actually will change your life.
Yeah. All right. Jump into the first one. I'll let you take it away.
Number one, we're just starting out with, you're probably all sick of me saying it, and I'm going to say it until the world no longer is broken. Mobility. We all need to work on mobility, even if that's all you do at the gym some days. Maybe it's 5 minutes at the beginning of the workout. Maybe it's 5 minutes at the end. Maybe you do a full mobility session 1 to 3 times a week. I don't care what kind of fitness you do. You're a runner, you're a weightlifter, you're a yogi, you're a newbie to the gym, even more important, you're a desk jockey. You need to work on mobility.
Yeah, I agree. I think as we get older, we neglect it. You know, think about it. You're taught it when you're young with sports. You're, depending on what your sport is especially. And then once you become an adult, you just kind of skip out on it. And you're like, why do I need to stretch? Why do I need to do this? But there's so many benefits to stretching daily, and just making sure that you're, you know, preventing injuries that way. Or even like, I like to challenge myself with my mobility. So I'll be like, okay, I want to improve, you know, whether it's like trying to be able to touch my toes finally, whatever it may be, just make it like a little bit of a challenge and make it fun, because mobility can be boring. Like, I'm one of those that thinks it's super boring. So I have to make it fun somehow.
Definitely. And I guess we should just briefly touch on what does mobility even mean? And we're going to say it in just very basic terms, just so you can easily incorporate it in and not get overwhelmed, because you can definitely go down the science of it. But just in pretty simple terms, we know flexibility. I think everyone knows that, like bend over, can you touch your toes? But that's very static. Mobility, and I'd say branch flexibility into that. So that should be part of your mobility routine. But that also means dynamic stretching. So that actually means moving a muscle or a joint through its entire range of motion, while also strengthening it, ideally at the complete full range of motion. So you don't, because there's such a thing as being hypermobile, and hyper flexible, I should say. So it's just being able to move your body in every direction. Example I will give, very layman terms, is a forward lunge. We all know that. Just think of a forward lunge. Mobility would also allow you to go laterally, reverse at a 45-degree angle. So it's just being able to move your body in every direction fluently without pain. And so a very common things you see people doing is like bird dogs, dead bugs. What would be some other ones I'm just blanking on right now? You know, lizard stretches, you know, a yoga flow usually typically has those. But even just simply type in YouTube, there's so many, just like beginner mobility warm up. Just start with that for 5 minutes. There's so many resources out there.
Yeah.
What would be some of your favorites?
Well, I feel like honestly, yoga is one of the best ones that you can do for it. If you want to improve on your mobility and just learn new forms of it, like go to a couple yoga classes that are more like, is it yin yoga? Where it's more, they focus on like deep stretches, opposed to if you're doing like vinyasa. I could be butchering this, guys. I'm not a yogi, but by all means, but I took, you know, class every week when we were living in New York. And it was just like, hey, guys, if you have really tight hips, or I know for me, I have like a hunch in my back. That's something I have a problem with. Yeah. And I always have. And so they'll be like, oh, if you find yourself hunching, like, here's some tips. Here's some easy flows you can do. So if you're new to it, because it can be so confusing, because all we really know usually is static stretching, just go to a couple yoga classes. And you don't even need to go to a yoga class. Just freaking Google it, YouTube it. And then just find like 5 stretches you're comfortable with and improve on them and work on them until you feel really comfortable.
Definitely. And I will say, I 100% agree with yoga, because yoga is one of the things that got me into my mobility routine. So I think it's a great way. Usually yoga teachers, especially these days, are really trained in how to properly move you. But I will say yoga, just be warned when you just like exactly what Sav said, like do your research, because there is different yogas. Like yoga is a spiritual practice as well. So you might get into it and you're just suddenly holding like weird positions. Like Bikram is pretty much like holding positions in hot yoga that you're not going to get as much of a like mobility movement. You'll get some, but it's more of like holding different postures, meditation almost. Once again, there's so many different forms that I know someone's like, hey, that's wrong. I'm like, because there's so many different forms. So just do your research before. And also just literally type in mobility classes. I find, I don't know if you're feeling this, Sav, like especially when you're in New York, but like Vancouver, Toronto, every gym I go to now almost always provides a mobility class. And I find even just go once or twice, those, a lot of times people who teach that are super educated. And so they can just give you a bunch of resources, because it's really tough for us to give you any specifics when we don't know how you move, when we don't know your posture imbalances. So that's why I'm like, seeing a professional and just going to the classes is a lot more of an affordable way to deal with a professional.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. All right, jump us into 2, ma'am.
Okay. Number 2. And the next ones will get a little bit more out there, because these first 2 are so basic. But you got to remind you, guys, hydration. It's so simple. It's the freest thing. If you're trying this whole new diet, you're trying to revamp, you're adding this weird mushroom and kale to your diet, but you don't have your water dialed in, let's scale back and get your water. But also specifically, I think we have a lot of emphasis on hydration and not enough emphasis on electrolytes. Have you ever had an incident when you notice you're not even just like dehydrated, but you have like an electrolyte imbalance? Have you ever had that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's actually something Michael and I focus on a lot, is electrolytes in general. And like Michael just bought this water machine that essentially like alkalizes but also strips the minerals, just because like our power goes out frequently where we live, and when that happens, like your tap water tends to like not necessarily be as filtered. Like you'll taste more like chlorine, so that means like there's been something with the power going in and out, and like water sitting too long. So Michael bought this machine, and like with this machine, since it does strip all of the minerals, electrolytes, everything from water, we just add in pink salt. And I could also be butchering this. Like Michael is the person that is really into water when it comes to us. I just kind of like, okay, I'll try it with you. So probably butchered it. But it is something we have noticed, that we're like, we always add pink salt to our water, depending on, how we're getting our water and things like that.
Definitely. And here's a little hack. I know it's New Year's resolution times. A really common thing people do, cut back on caffeine. Interesting thing, if you're cutting back on caffeine and you're finding you're having that midday slump, try replacing a coffee with an electrolyte, or a cheaper version, like you just said, add salt to some water, maybe a little lemon juice in there to make it fun. And you'd be surprised. I actually cut out not electrolytes. I cut out energy drinks by just swapping it in with electrolytes. And it was like, I didn't notice a difference. Now I'm down to, I used to be minimum 1 a day, sometimes more. And since then I'm like 1 a month, by upping my electrolytes. And I noticed I'm still having caffeine, so I didn't cut caffeine. But I drastically cut my caffeine consumption in half without any negative side effects by just literally replacing it with electrolytes. So there's habits are a lot easier when you can swap them versus just cut them out. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I still get that like fun flavored drink in the middle of the day or in the morning, but instead of energy drink, it's like a element flavored water, which is fun. In my fun.
This is a little off topic with it, but I usually like big coffee person. I love coffee. But I'm like you, where I crave like something that's not just water for the rest of the day once I have like my 2 cups. Yeah. So I've just been incorporating like herbal tea. And I have like a fun teapot my friend got me, and I love it. And I'll basically make like an entire pot of tea and then just heat it up when I want. And then like I'll add milk, or I'll add honey, or I'll just have it plain. So it's just like, if it's not herbal, sometimes I'll have Earl Grey or something, but that's less caffeine than a cup of coffee usually. Yeah.
I know. I suddenly in the last year have been a tea person. When did that? Like I have tea every night before bed, and I ordered a tea after my meal the other day. I was like, who am I?
Who are you?
What have I become? But honestly, it's great. I love it. It's like just nice and warm and cozy. And like you said, like, it has that novelty factor of not just being water.
Totally. Wait, I have a funny story. The other day I went...
Tell.
Okay, so I had dinner and drinks with one of my friends here. She used to do my eyelashes, and we just were good friends. Like, we'd chat while she'd do them. So I'm like, let's hang out. Michael drops me off. He's like, I've always wanted to meet her. And I'm like, well, I think it's a girls' night. He drops me off at this restaurant because he's taking the car because he's going to go meet our friends for dinner. And there's like some friends that were coming down from a different spot. And I had already made plans. So I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to, not ditch my friend. I'll meet up with you after. So I get there. My friend thinks it's a double date. So she brings her boyfriend. So I basically third wheeled with her and her boyfriend. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know. I told him like to make other plans. And she thought it was a double date and I thought it was a girls' night, which one I just thought was funny. But I had 2 glasses of wine with them. And like, I haven't really been drinking much in general. And so like 2 glasses of wine makes me feel a little tipsy, makes me a little extra chatty. And after I went to meet up with Michael and like some of the friends, and there was like a couple I hadn't met them. This was like the first time I'd really met them, and I'm like coming in 2 glasses of wine, feeling bubbly, feeling chatty, and it was so funny because that entire group ordered tea, and I was like, you guys haven't had drinks tonight? And like, I don't think any of them really drink. They're like Michael kind of, and so I was like, yeah, oh, different level. And they all were like, would you like some tea like at dinner? And I was like, no, yeah, I'm good. But thank you. But it just made me laugh because I was like, wow, I had a very different dinner than Michael that night. They're all having tea. Yep, all of them got a pot of tea, right? Different vibes.
Honestly, both great vibes, complete opposite sides of the spectrum. Definitely. Sweet and salty right there.
Definitely.
I love a little sweet, love a little salty. You guys came together in that perfect harmonious. Okay, I got to ask you then. We should give the viewers, let's try and get 5 tips to actually get your water in. Because you know what? Classic, we just told you to drink water. You're like, I've obviously been trying like 5 little hacks. Okay, I'm gonna name like 1 or 2 and then give you a second to think, and then you can name 1 or 2. Okay, so first for me is decide how much water works for your body. It's different. And then I fill up that many water bottles. And that might be really lame, but I'm not one of those people that can carry around one of those 2 4-liter waters. And I need like 4 to 6 liters of water a day. That's just me. I don't recommend that for most people. I just sweat a lot. I don't have a car. I walk. And so I have 4 water bottles. At the beginning of the day, I fill up my 4 water bottles and I have to drink all 4 of those. So that's my 1 tip. Then my second would be to make each of them fun. This is really lame, say water's fun, but obviously you just gotta make it pretty, infuse it, fill it with some lemon and mint. No, I think cucumber and mint. Lemon's just good on its end. My citrus ones, throw in some oranges, some raspberry and mint. Oh, strawberry and basil. We did that a little while ago. Throw that in your water, make it nice, make it Pinteresty, and that just makes you actually want to drink it. So you just want to make it so it's easier to do than not to do. So those would be my first 2. Make it fun and make it really easy with having your water pre-filled. What are some you have?
I like that. For me, I'm very much just a simple gal that like could not be bothered to take time to do that. I love that idea, and I always will buy lemons, and I will do lemon water every now and then, but I always break my habit because then I get lazy and I don't do it. So if you're like me and you just like get it in, how do I do it? Black and white with it. I just do not allow myself to have coffee or anything I enjoy in the morning before like I drink an entire bottle of water. And it's like, I'm not downing the gallons of water. I'm just having like a glass, 2 glasses, whatever it is. And I just really work on prioritizing that first and make it a habit. And also it does help because if you're reaching for coffee, the minute you wake up, like you should be like, is this a great habit, right? Like maybe allow your body to process, wake up on its own before consuming caffeine. Because like there was something about that I just like, there's studies with it. We're not even going to get into it because we've talked about that before. But I just did not like that I became so dependent on caffeine the minute I woke up, the minute like I was awake, I ingested it. So I just prioritized doing water. So that'd probably be my first one. And then second is like after a certain point in the night, then I only consume water in the sense of like I love LaCroix. I'm like you are. I like flavored things. But if I notice I'm not getting enough water intake after dinner or whatever it may be, I just work on like, I'll have like a fun cup or something, or cup with a straw or something like that I'm like downing my water before I even go to bed. I don't know about you, but like my body does a really good job of letting me know when I need water. Like I'll immediately get a headache and I know I'm dehydrated because I don't get headaches often. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm very like harmonious with my water intake. Otherwise, I'm just going to be in pain.
I will say once you get consistent with it, you notice like when you're even one like bottle water less. Like I'm the exact same way. I still have to like build that habit, but like my breath, like my mouth tastes different when I haven't as much water. Even like right now, yes. I'm like, ooh, I'm really thirsty and I can like feel it in my breath. And like, there's like a specific taste and like, and you only really understand that once you're like consistently, and then your body does do a good way. That's why I'm also like, would never really recommend drink this much water because everyone's water needs are different. And once you get in tune with your body, it does a really good job of telling you. So yeah, I like that. Those are, I think those 3 good tips right there of just like preset your water out, make it fun. Also, I will say for yours, like what you said, Sav, I feel you do such a good job there. Like you pair it to another habit. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone has the habit of drinking coffee. So just pair it. Before I drink my coffee, I'll drink my water. Before I brush my teeth, I drink my water. Before I leave the house or when I sit down at my computer, like just like if you already have a habit, if you can pair on something else to it, that's a really easy way instead of trying to build a whole new habit.
Yeah, I agree. Just add it on. If
I like
you're already
it.
having the coffee, just have a good old glass of water with it and just take, or even take 10 minutes out of your day to down the water. And then a reward is coffee.
Exactly. Great reward. And if you're like, what's even the point? Like you said, the energy you will have and just like bowel movements work easier. You have better energy. Your skin will be better. You will have like, just try it. If you're not on the water grain, just try it for a little bit. Then you'll understand why. Yes. Just try it. Because that could be the solution to all your problems, your headaches, your mood swings. You could just be dehydrated.
It's true. All right, jump into our next one.
3. We're just going to call this cross training. So pretty much the opposite to your main goal. If you are a weightlifter, you should do some yoga. If you're a runner, you need to do some weights. If you're a yogi, you need to do some resistance training. I know, Sav, you're actually very good at this. Like you have a very balanced workout routine, I would say. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on cross training.
Yeah, honestly, when you put this in, I loved it because big cross training girl over here. And I think it's because when I first got into my fitness journey, I believed that, idea of, okay, if I'm a lifter, I have to only be a lifter. And I would consume a lot of content where they like make fun of running if they're a lifter. So I was like, then I'm not a runner, and I just like would put myself in these little boxes and then I wouldn't see the results I wanted. And so then I just did a lot of research on it, and that's where I essentially found cross training. And, just because you lift weights and you don't love cardio doesn't mean you can't be a runner. You can definitely be a runner. And if you push your body to like its limits and you learn something new, your body will actually reward you majority of the time because you're switching it up. So I really, really like that. A lot of people are like, how do you run, but you also lift weights? It's like, you can do both. You should be able to do both, right? Because maybe one day we need to outrun a murderer, and maybe one day we need to lift a heavy rock. So I don't know.
Exactly.
But I just think it's important to try all forms of exercise and never put yourself in a box. I truly dislike when people do that online because then it's showing an example to women all over that they can't, be it all where you can. What do you think on it?
I fully agree with that. And I found it funny the day I was the same. I went from sports to like heavy in the weightlifting scene, and all I wanted to do was like lifting, and you like running and cardio would take away from your lifts and make you lose muscle, and stretching would do all that. And now I realized I lost so much progress on my fitness routine, journey by just limiting the range of my training. And I'm just going to give some quick rapid fire reasons why. First, if you're a big weightlifter and your biggest goal is to grow a bigger butt, bigger arms, bigger shoulders, the bigger range of motion you have, the more chances you have to like stimulate different muscle fibers. So if you want to actually get bigger muscles, having a wider range of motion, aka be more mobile, flexible, you can get bigger muscles from there. So if you want to grow your glutes, have mobile hips. On the flip side, if you want to be a runner, typically you want to run faster and you don't want to be injured. The best way to do that is to weight train. And then yogis, for example, you can also be way too flexible and you can easily hurt yourself, and nothing sets you back on your workout journey than injury. And so that's why resistance training is usually very important to people who are like flexibility based, running based. But I think it's that, like, realizing it's not taking away from what you do. If you look at pro athletes, they all have a very balanced routine. They all have their flexibility, their cardio, and like you just kind of need to do it all. And you'd be surprised by taking a 1 day week off to work on the opposite to your typical training might actually make your training even better.
Yeah. I remember a couple years back, I even used to get made fun of online all the time because I don't know, like, I think maybe because I went into weightlifting and then I switched it up and realized like it wasn't actually getting me the results I wanted. I had to be everything, and I had to improve on high intensity training. I had to improve on mobility. I had to improve on running. Like, I remember people making fun of me because it wasn't as accepted back then, where now I think it's great that people are like realizing, hey, you can be all, like, right? People used to make fun of Pilates people. Like, and I get where if you are showing you grew this massive butt and you solely are doing like bands and Pilates, I could see where you're kind of like, okay, there's definitely more that goes into that, typically. Yeah. Or it could be your genetics. So I see where if people are like showing false information in the sense of like how they achieve their body, but also we don't know. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I just remember that was something I would get made fun of, was like, does she even lift? Because she runs. And I'm like, what the hell? I could do both.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's just frustrating that the fitness industry makes it like you have to have your one niche and like fight it. And unfortunately, there is bad actors out there. Like the Pilates, we'll just use that as an example. And I can't even think of someone, so I'm not directing this at someone because I don't know an example, but just generically, like, we could talk about a girl who has like a BBL and then she's selling like a resistance band Pilates workout.
Oh,
and you're
totally.
like, no. And like, and then then everyone associates everyone who does Pilates is that kind of person, like falsely saying it. And I think it's just like realistically realizing, yeah, if you want to get the biggest butt possible, the fastest way possible, weightlift. Yeah. But you should do other parts. So unfortunately, the bad apples kind of soured a bit. But if you want to see progress this year, you don't have to do everything. Just start with maybe the opposite of how you're trained mostly. Yeah. And then kind of try a few other things until eventually down the road, you'll realize it feels a lot better to have variety. I almost said virality. Virality. That was a struggle. Variability in your workout routine.
One of my friends, she texted me. Well, at first she was like, do you think it was this one influencer? It's very obvious this person has a BBL. And I was like, she's like, do you think they have them? I'm like, yes, absolutely. That's a BBL. And then I'm like, well, I'm like, does she tell people she doesn't have a BBL? And she's like, yeah, and that she sells booty workouts. And that's where I was like, okay, it's a little unethical, people. But it's like, if you want that and you want to do booty workouts, like, have at it. But maybe just be a little more transparent, because then my friend bought her booty workout guide and I was like, I told you, it's not real. But I just didn't realize how common that is in this industry, because it doesn't come up for me as often. And then my friend was consuming the content and showed me, and I was like, no, that definitely is. Like, that's a dead giveaway. That's not genetically possible. So yeah, that's just something. I won't reveal who it was, but I just thought it was fascinating.
It's crazy. Sometimes I feel you and me both, we are pretty lucky that we consume good information and we have good friends around us, and like, I don't really see that much bad information. Like, everyone I follow, I'm like, awesome, we all have the same message. But then every once in a while you'll be in a weird spot on the internet and you'll be like, wait, people actually sell skinny teas still? Like, you know what I mean? Like, every once in a while that still happens, and I'm like, sometimes I feel like I'm repeating myself. And that's why even we're doing this foundation. Some of you are so smart. Like, I hear in our comments, like, you guys get it. Like, that's why you consume fitness and wellness content. But every once in a while we hear the bad stuff out there. So it's like, let's all remind ourselves of the important things, because there is some bad actors out there, unfortunately.
Definitely. I agree.
Okay, on to the next one. I'm just going to jump into it. Number 4, speaking of not as sexy, but we all need to do. Actually, this could be very sexy depending on how you do it. But number 4, I've said this once, so I'll say it again, hip openers. We all need to do hip openers. So this is like, you're like, specifically, we talked about mobility at the start. I was like, I don't care. This, even if you don't do mobility, do hip opener exercises. So I'm just going to say we should all be doing 90-90s. There's a lot of others. Once again, go get assessed by a personal trainer, a professional, look online, do your own research. But if there's one thing to start with mobility, and the reason being, we all sit. We all have tight hips. We have lack of hip mobility, and your glutes and your hips are your most powerful muscle, and they reduce the chance of injury. They make you more athletic. They make you faster. It's just like, we shouldn't all have tight hips, and we all have tight hips. We need to start opening up our hips in 2023. Do you have any favorite go-to hip openers?
No, this is definitely something I equally need to work on. I feel like I don't focus on it on the days I should. But I did have, Millie was over and we were going for a run. She's a big runner. And she was focusing on opening her hips before she ran. And I was like, I've never even thought to do that. So this is definitely more your area of expertise. But I do think it's important. And I've been doing a lot more research since Millie was like, you should definitely be doing this. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's mind-blowing, and this is why I even made it its own one, aside from just mobility, because here will be your motivation to do it. First of all, I used to have severe lower back pain. Turns out, I just had tight glutes. So right there, hip openers can fix that. Second, usually tight also means weak. So typically, if you're someone who just naturally isn't, like myself, is gifted with a big booty, it could be very well that you just have tight, lack of mobile hips. And by opening up your hips, you have more mobility, and you can actually get that full range of motion to actually be able to build your glute muscles. Also, bigger range of motion, longer strides, you'll be able to run faster, more explosive, and of course, you're less likely to be injured. So if you've got, once again, I'm not a physiotherapist, so I don't want to prescribe anything. I just want to say this. I'm just saying it's something to talk more about and look into if you have lower back pain, weak glutes, you can't grow your glutes no matter what you do, look into it. And you know what, as we all sit there, do some 90-90s. And if you don't know what a 90-90 is, here's actually, if you're new to the gym and you kind of want to look like you know what you're doing, start your warm-up with a 90-90. It's kind of going in there and saying, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I'm fully aware of hip openers, because it's just like elevated status of mobile stretching. So I'm just giving you a little insider knowledge if that's how you look like a fitness pro. Just doing some hip openers in your warm-up. So there's my little tip. And we're all going to be on salve. I'm going to talk to you in 6 months. I'm going to be like, let's see that 90-90.
For real. No, definitely. It's something I need to work on. And admit when you aren't educated on it enough, right? Like, it's definitely something I have to work on.
There we go. And that's the thing. Fitness is a forever expanding field. None of us are pro athletes. None of us are ever going to be 100% in anything. So we just have little areas to always we can improve on. And you're not bad for not being great at everything. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't drink enough water today. I didn't get enough sleep today. My hips are tight. Like, it's just a part of being a human.
Definitely.
We need maintenance. We need a lot of maintenance.
Yeah.
Number 5. Playful movement. And this will wrap it up. We have a little bonus section at the end, but pretty much I think we take fitness too seriously. We are like, it's so science-based and you have to do this. And I get it. I would never want anyone doing anything that would injure themselves. You only have so many hours in a day, so you want to be optimized. But at the end of the day, like, we were just meant to play as humans. Like, that's why we play sports and just have fun with movement. So playful movement can be, a yoga flow. It can be playing a sport. It can go swimming. It can go for a hot girl walk. It's just having movement not be so sterile and like clinical. Like, let's have it a bit more enjoyable part of our day. And that actually be a foundation, not a bonus. Like, I think that should be a foundation that you enjoy the workout and it sounds cheesy, but you consider it fun. Like, what would you consider some of your like more playful movements in the day?
Yeah. For me, it's running. I love running outside. Like, I just feel like more connected with nature when I do that. Even this weekend, I went for a run on the weekend and, oh wow, I just said weekend twice. But it started pouring down rain. And instead of me being like, oh, I hate this, I just like ran in the rain. And like, for me, I just love that. It's like when I'm at a gym, it's like a constant and like nothing's going to change really, where when you're running out in nature, there's so many different elements. So that's, for me, that's my playtime. I just think running is really enjoyable.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's literally like perfect. So, I'd say running too, but for me, I would also say sports. So that's going to play tennis, something like that, just shooting hoops. And then some other movements that I find playful, I guess, would be swimming. Swimming really connects me with like nature and myself, and I feel very it's fun for me. And then also I need to find a word for it, and I don't want to just call it yoga, but very like flow like movements. There's like animal yoga, and there's flow yoga, and there's Pilates, but it's just where you almost feel like you're dancing and like connecting with your body to music. Obviously, like music is like one of my foundations. So anytime I can move where it's almost like dancing, but I'm not a dancer, I'd say those are kind of my playful movements.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, thank you. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up with a little bonus. Now, the above 5 questions we kind of had was kind of assuming if you're taking in health or wellness podcasts, you typically already are a fan of health and wellness. So it was for someone who has your one form. So you might be a weightlifter, you might be yogi, you might be Pilates, you might be a runner. So just kind of a reminder for all of you. But I also wanted to make sure, in general, if you're new to it or if you're an expert, I think we should be better at, I like to think of fitness as like a bucket, and there's like 5 different components to it. And I think that should be your foundation. Like that should be the base of your home, and you build up from there. We wanted to be a bit more specific, so you guys had some tangible things to take away from. Number 1, resistance training, so your weight training, anything that involves moving weight. Number 2, mobility, flexibility, stretching of any kind. Number 3, cardio, so that gets your heart rate elevated, walking, running, swimming. Number 4, a mental outlet. Your fitness should be a mental outlet. And then number 5, play. So it should be fun, enjoyable. And that would be the foundation to your fitness routine.
Perfect. I love it. You summed it up perfectly.
Okay. And that's today's episode. So do you want to hit them with our links and recommendations? Or not recommendations?
Feel free to drop a review. We haven't had a review in a while. So if you ever want us to read it, drop a review and let us know your thoughts. Feel free to check out our Instagram at Hitting the Bars Podcast. And we do have a TikTok as well. We're in the works of that. But we are just happy if you clicked on this and you came to hang out with us for the day.
Yeah, we appreciate you. And I appreciate you, Sab. Thank you for being here another week.
Of course.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.